Well, hey, everybody, Pastor Dean again, and we are taking a look at the text for Sunday, December 11th, which is the third Sunday of Advent this year. And that text is Isaiah 35, 1 to 10, which is the whole chapter. And the theme for this particular week is the gift of joy. And as you read this text, and as I read it, and as I unpack it a little bit, you'll see that this particular um, vision that Isaiah has is one that is filled with joy. And I'll explain a little bit of why that is in just a minute. So let's take a look and listen at Isaiah 35, 1 to 10. So, the wilderness and the dry land shall be glad. The desert shall rejoice and blossom. Like the crocus, it shall blossom abundantly and rejoice with joy and singing. The glory of Lebanon shall be given to it, the majesty of Carmel and Sharon. They shall see the glory of the Lord, the majesty of our God. Strengthen the weak hands and make firm the feeble knees. Say to those who are of a fearful heart, be strong, do not fear. Here is your God. He will come with vengeance, with terrible recompense. He will come and save you. Then the eyes of the blind shall be opened, and the ears of the deaf unstopped. Then the lame shall leap like a deer, and the tongue of the speechless sing for joy. For water shall break forth in the wilderness, and streams in the desert. The burning sand shall become a pool, and the thirsty ground springs of water. The haunt of jackals shall become a swamp. The grass shall become reeds and rushes. A highway shall be there, and it shall be called the Holy Way. The unclean shall not travel on it, but it shall be for God's people. No traveler, not even fools, shall go astray. No lion shall be there, nor shall any ravenous beast come upon it. They shall not be found there, but the redeemed shall walk there. And the ransomed of the Lord shall return and come to Zion with singing. Everlasting joy shall be upon their heads. They shall obtain joy and gladness, and sorrow and sighing shall flee away. So Isaiah 35 is the final chapter in this particular section of Isaiah. And this section began back in chapter 13. So a month ago, I preached from Isaiah 12, which was the end of that first section of the book of Isaiah. And Isaiah 12 had a similar vibe to it in that it was looking forward to the one who was coming. The message that I preached was God is my salvation. So Isaiah in chapter 12 was looking forward to the one who was coming. And now we see again that Isaiah is looking forward to the one who will come. And this one that will come will bring joy. And it will happen in a particular way. Now, as I read, I hope you noticed all of the different words for joy and gladness. The wilderness and the dry land shall be glad. The desert shall rejoice. They will rejoice with joy and singing. There was verse 6, the tongue of the speechless will sing for joy. And this verse 10, the ransom of the Lord shall return and come to Zion with singing. Everlasting joy shall be upon their heads, and they shall obtain joy and gladness. Sorrow and sighing shall flee. Now, those are not all the same word in Hebrew. There are actually several different words. There's sus, there's gil, there is sason, there's rana, and simcha. And all of those words express this idea of joy and gladness and happiness and excitement, and they each have their own nuances, which they're really close to one another. But it's the same idea that when we use different words for joy or for happiness or gladness or excitement, things like that, we have different words in English that have little bits of nuance to them as to describe what it is that we're feeling. And so, and we use them sometimes interchangeably and sometimes in conjunction with one another. So, so don't get bogged down in the fact that there's multiple different words that are used for joy or rejoice or gladness, that kind of thing. Just understand that just like in English, Hebrew has multiple words that mean similar concepts. And so that it's just a reminder that in our text, in our biblical text, there are words that um, they have nuances of meaning, and so the biblical editors, the translators have made choices about how they translate those words, and that's fine. Most of the time they do a fantastic job because they're super smart, way smarter than me. But here we go. So, but what are they? What is Isaiah being joyful about? Well, it has a lot to do with the idea of being redeemed and redemption. In my NRSV translation, this chapter is titled "The Return of the Redeemed to Zion." Now, I've told you before that that Isaiah is preaching and prophesying into the time when the Assyrians are at the doorstep of the people of Israel, and there is stress about those who have been exiled already, and will they come back? What will happen to them? When will Jerusalem be restored? When will Israel be restored? And there's this angst about what's going to happen. And so Isaiah 35 is this vision of all of those people who are in exile coming back and being redeemed and restored to Zion. And Zion is a biblical code word for Jerusalem. So just like last week, we looked at chapter 11 and how Isaiah has this vision of the peaceful kingdom where all the nations will come back together. And it fulfills that vision from Isaiah chapter 2, where the nations shall not lift up sword against nation, neither shall they learn war anymore. They'll turn their swords into plowshares and their spears into pruning hooks. That's in chapter 2. In the peaceful kingdom, where the prey and the predator are no longer adversaries, they're in community with one another. And now we have chapter 35, where we see that the redeemed of the Lord are coming back to Jerusalem, and Isaiah has this beautiful vision of what that looks like. So he says, the wilderness and the dry land shall be glad. The desert shall rejoice and blossom like the crocus. It shall bloom abundantly and rejoice with joy and singing. So in 1.5 verses, 4 times there's a word for joy. Glad, rejoice, and joy. And it's 2 different words, gil and sus. So again, you don't have to get bogged down in that. So as the redeemed are returning to Zion, what's happening is that creation is responding. Creation is now blooming and blossoming. That which was which felt deserted, which felt abandoned, the wilderness and the dry land, will now be glad, and it will bloom. And crocus is a flower, and that's a translation of a hard to translate word. Some translations translate it rose, but it's a desert flower that, with just the littlest bit of rain in the desert, it will bloom almost overnight and beautify the landscape. And that's the flower there. But it shall blossom abundantly and rejoice with joy and singing. So as this redemption is happening, creation is responding, and creation is responding with joy and gladness, rejoicing, and with all the beauty that it can create. And we'll see more in just a minute. So the glory of Lebanon shall be given to it, the majesty of Carmel and Sharon. So Lebanon, Mount Lebanon, is an area. Lebanon is an area in there, and the majesty of Mount Carmel. Sharon is the plain of Sharon. Mount Carmel is one of the highest peaks in that region. It often has snow all year long, and the plain of Sharon is at the base of that, and it is beautiful most of the time of the year. And they shall see the glory of the Lord, the majesty of our God. So we don't quite know who the they are. We'll get to that, but we don't know who the they are. But spoiler, it's the redeemed of the Lord. They will see the glory of the Lord. Those who are being redeemed, those who are coming back into Zion, they will be the ones who see the glory of the Lord. They will see the majesty of our God. So as they are being redeemed, Isaiah sees that weak hands will be strengthened, and feeble knees will be made firm, and those who have a fearful heart will say, "Be strong, do not fear, because here is your God. He will come with vengeance. He will come with terrible recompense. He will come and save you." You see, as the people are coming, being restored, in order for them to be restored, the people who have kept them away from their land have to be moved out. And so he says, he will come with vengeance, with terrible recompense, that the Lord will come and make a just payment to those who have kept the people away from Zion, and so that he can enable the redemption to happen and the people to be restored to Zion. Then he goes on and he talks more about this healing and this restoring. The eyes of the blind shall be opened, the ears of the deaf unstopped, the lame shall leap like a deer, the tongue of the speechless sing for joy. The waters shall break forth in the wilderness, and streams in the desert. So again, creation is responding. God is providing for the people, and creation is responding. So water is breaking forth in places that were dry and arid and barren, and now there are streams. There are literal rivers in the desert. And the burning sand shall become a pool. So, I've been to the beach enough times to know that anytime you pour water onto sand, if it's dry sand, it just goes right in and it soaks up and the water's gone. So the sand becoming a pool means there is so much water. And the thirsty ground, springs of water. So every place that's dry will have moisture. It'll have life. It'll have abundant supplies of everything that it needs to continue life. The haunt of jackals shall become a swamp, and the grass shall become reeds and rushes. Again, all of these places that normally don't have any water now have abundant supplies of water, so that life can happen, that growth can happen, so that new things can be born, so that things that were thought to be dead can now be seen as alive. And verse 8 says, "A highway shall be there, shall be called the Holy Way," is the way it's translated in the NRSV. Other translations call it the Holy Highway. So they just use the word again. So there is a sense that there will be this road. There will be a pathway. There will be this stretch of a directional path that leads to Zion. The highway shall be there. It shall be called the Holy Way. The unclean shall not travel on it. Those who have been the oppressors will not be able to walk on this way. But it shall be for God's people, for the people that are being redeemed. No traveler, not even fools, shall go astray. There's a sense that the people of God will be able to go and move in this highway, on this highway towards Zion, without fear of falling to the left or the right. They're going to follow God and they're going to go towards Zion. No lion shall be there, nor shall any ravenous beast come upon it. They shall not be found there, but the redeemed shall walk there. So there's the redeemed of the Lord. They're the ones who will walk on this holy way. They're the ones who will have their hands strengthened, their knees made firm. They'll be the ones who are told, "Be strong and do not fear." They'll be the ones who will receive the glory of Lebanon and the majesty of Carmel and Sharon. They're the ones who will see the glory of the Lord and the majesty of their God. So it's this redeemed group of people, the people of God, who will be the ones who find themselves on this holy way, on this holy highway, in the desert, amidst all this brand new life, this abundant water supply in a place that's normally just barren and dry and deserted. And the ransomed, verse 10, and the ransomed of the Lord shall return and come to Zion with singing. Everlasting joy shall be upon their heads. They shall obtain joy and gladness, and sorrow and sighing shall flee away. The ransomed of the Lord and redeemed of the Lord. These two terms, this idea of being the redeemed and the ransomed, these terms are related to one another. Now, I'm going to jump. I want to sit there for just a second, because the redeemed, the ransomed, they're the ones who will be the ones who walk on this holy highway. They will be the ones who will return to Zion. They will come with singing. They will come to Zion with singing. They will come with everlasting joy that will be upon their heads. Like they will have this deep indwelling joy that it's able to be seen on their faces, and they shall obtain joy and gladness, and then all the sorrow, all the sighing, all the pain, all the grief, all of it goes away. This is a beautiful vision of what happens when the people of the Lord are redeemed. So I want to hang there for just a minute. I want to hang on that ransomed and redeemed concept, because the idea of being redeemed there has to do with a very specific biblical word. So the word that's is goel, and it's goelim, that is the redeemed, and it's from Gaal in the Hebrew, which means to redeem or to act as a kinsman. And the idea is the redemption is from some kind of exile. Now, this concept of to act as a kinsman, it's found in a couple other places in the Old Testament, and one of them is in the book of Ruth. Now, book of Ruth, if you haven't read it, go and read it. It's only 4 chapters long. It's this beautiful story of a daughter-in-law and a mother-in-law, and Ruth is the daughter-in-law, and she commits herself to Naomi, her mother-in-law, after her husband dies, and they enter into a famine. She says, "I'll go where you go. Your God will be my God," and so they go back to Naomi's homeland, which is Israel, and Ruth goes to work in Boaz's field and meets Boaz. And long story short, Boaz falls in love with Ruth, and he wants to marry her. But when he goes to find out like how she's who she's supposed to be married to and where her family is and that kind of stuff, he realizes that there's somebody that's ahead of him in what's called the kinsman redeemer line. So there is a responsibility of the redeemer, the kinsman redeemer, to reach out and to take care of family members who are in need, not because it's not one of one of the scholars that I looked at, he talks about it not being an inescapable duty, meaning like you can't do anything about it, but it was a right. The right of the kinsman redeemer was something that you exercised. It took volition on your part to step into that role, and you could step aside from it if you chose to, if it was not beneficial for you to do that. And so Boaz understands that there's somebody ahead of him in this kinsman redeemer line. There's a man who is closer in relation to Ruth than he is, family wise. And so he goes to this man and he says, I want to redeem Ruth, but you're closer and closer to her in relation, and so it's your right to redeem her. And this man declines. He says, no, I can't do that. That would basically cause too much chaos in my family. So he lets go. He legally releases his kinsman redeemer right to Boaz. And Boaz goes and exercises his right now as the kinsman redeemer for Ruth, and he redeems her from her being a widow, and he marries her, and then eventually Ruth becomes the grandmother of King David. But the idea is that this concept of redemption, this concept of redeemer, stresses the person of the redeemer, the one doing the redeeming, and his relationship to those who are redeemed, or the one who is redeemed, and the intervention on their behalf. So the scholar says, in its classical expression, the work of redeemer was a right which no other dare usurp. So you can look at Ruth 3:12 and 4:1-6. It was a right rather than an inescapable duty, and it was calling for willingness. So therefore, in verses 9 and 10 in Isaiah 35, the terms redeemed and ransomed, they refer to this powerful act of God's intervention, this redemption that God is providing for the people so that they might find their way back to God. So in Ruth, I think for me, Ruth, this Boaz and Ruth scene in the last couple of chapters of that book are sort of the quintessential vision of what it means to be a kinsman redeemer and the redeemer in the Old Testament. The New Testament, that redemption is brought about by Christ. And when Jesus goes to the cross and sheds his blood for our sins and redeems us from our sin, he is willingly stepping into that redeemer role. He's willingly exercising the right that he has as the kinsman redeemer to free us from the things that trap us, free us from the things that weigh us down. And he becomes, as he says in the Gospel of John, he is the way and the truth and the life. He's leading us to the Father, and he will come again to gather us up and take us to where he has made the house for us. So he has redeemed us by his blood. So there's this sense that in all things we have this redemption. We have the redemption in Christ, and that is the pinnacle of what it means to be redeemed and how God intervenes on behalf of the people. We see this redemption image also in the exile. We see the Passover. So we see it multiple times throughout biblical history. There's, when people sin initially, when Adam and Eve disobey God, there's redemption through the death of an animal, but they're sent out. There's the redemption of the people out of Egypt. There's this moment as Ruth and Boaz, that Ruth is redeemed by Boaz, and then there's Jesus and the redemption that he provides through the blood of the cross. So this vision that Isaiah has in chapter 35 is not only powerful, it's beautiful, and again, all of creation is drawn into this image. The flowers, the water, the flourishing that's going on, and then that the redemption of the people is brought about by God. The ransomed people of God will walk on this holy highway. And because God is holy, the place that they are going is not only Zion, but it's to God. And that, my friends, is the hope and the joy of Advent. The joy of Advent, the gift of joy, is found in Jesus and his redemption of us and his drawing us back to God. And that's what we look forward to as we celebrate his birth, and we look forward to his second coming. So I hope that this helps you. I hope that as you lead your groups this week, that you will find joy in your conversation, in your exploration of the biblical understanding of joy. And if you have any questions, please feel free to reach out. And I'm happy to help in whatever ways I can. Thank you for what you do. Appreciate you so much. And we will see you again next week.